My husband said he wanted a divorce because I gained weight after our baby. Then his girlfriend found out I owned the house they moved into. My name is Naomi. I'm 30 years old. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina in a 2-bedroom apartment with my daughter, Zoe, who just turned 2. And I have a story I've been holding on to for a while now. I think it's finally time to tell it. A call came on a Tuesday from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. The woman on the other end sounded frustrated, not angry, just confused. She apologized for calling and said she'd gotten my number from the property management office. They'd received an eviction notice that morning. She said it had to be a mistake. They'd never missed a payment, never had an issue. But there wasn't a mistake. I told her I'd decided not to renew their lease when it expired. The notice covered everything. She asked if they'd done something wrong. They loved the house. But it wasn't about them. I was taking the property in a different direction. She exhaled shakily, saying she'd have to explain this to her boyfriend. He'd want answers she didn't have. 60 days was the legal requirement. That was plenty of time. Then she asked my name. Naomi, I responded. Naomi who? I gave her my last name, and a long silence followed. I waited. Then she said, almost to herself, "Oh my God, are you Derek's ex-wife?" "Yes." She took another breath. Then, quietly, "He told me the landlord was a stranger. He didn't know who owned this place." "I know. He didn't know he was renting from me." To understand how we got there, you have to understand who Derek was when I met him, and who I was, and what happened to both of us somewhere in between. I met Derek when I was 24. He was charming. His attention made me feel like I was the only person in the room. He called when he said he would. He remembered small things: my coffee order, my mother's birthday, the name of my third-grade teacher I had mentioned once in passing. I thought that kind of attention meant something real. I thought it meant he truly saw me. And maybe he did for a while. Or maybe he was just very good at making me believe he did. Even now, I'm not entirely sure which one it was. What I do know is that I was all in. Not recklessly. I was never a reckless person, but fully and genuinely. I have grown up watching my mother love people carefully, measuring trust before she gave it. I had inherited that from her. So when I gave Derek my trust, it wasn't something I handed over lightly. It was something I had thought about, something I had decided. We got married when I was 27. It was small, beautiful. My grandmother cried happy tears from the front row and told me afterward that Derek had kind eyes. She said she could always tell a person's character from their eyes. I wish I had her gift for reading people. I was happy in those early years. Genuinely, quietly happy. We had a 1-bedroom apartment in Noda that we slowly made into something that felt like ours. We cooked dinner together on weekends. We argued about small things and resolved them quickly. We had plans: a bigger place, travel, eventually a family. Normal plans. Good plans. When I got pregnant with Zoe, Derek seemed excited. He came to every appointment in the first trimester. He built the crib himself, spending an entire Saturday on the nursery floor with instructions spread out around him, refusing my help. He picked her name. He said it first, Zoe, and the moment he said it, I knew that was it. Then she arrived, and something shifted. Not all at once. That's what makes it so hard to explain, even now. It wasn't one moment or one conversation. It was gradual. It was Derek working a little later than he used to, coming home a little quieter, sitting across from me at dinner and looking at his phone more than he looked at me, reaching for me less at night, laughing less at the things I said. I noticed all of it. I just kept finding reasons to explain it away. New baby stress, work pressure, the adjustment of becoming parents. I told myself that every couple went through this, that it would level out, that patience was the right response. So I was patient. I was also exhausted,
in a way I hadn't known was possible before Zoe came. I was feeding her and rocking her and learning her rhythms while running on almost no sleep, going back to my remote accounting job 6 weeks postpartum because we needed the income. I was doing the majority of the night waking, the majority of the feeding, the majority of the appointments. Derek helped when I asked him to, but I was the one keeping track of everything: the pediatrician schedule, the formula brand, the developmental milestones. I was the one holding the whole picture in my head at all times. And I had gained 40 pounds. I was aware of it. I didn't love it, but I had grown an entire person inside my body, pushed her into the world, and was now keeping her alive primarily through my own effort and my own body. The weight wasn't something I had chosen. It was something that had happened to me in the process of doing something enormous. I figured I would work on it eventually, when I had the sleep and the bandwidth and the time. It wasn't urgent to me. I didn't know yet that it had become urgent to Derek. Zoe was 8 months old when Derek sat me down at the kitchen table on a Sunday evening while she was napping. He had a rehearsed look on his face, the kind of people get when they've been practicing a conversation in their head for weeks and are finally forcing themselves to say it out loud. He folded his hands on the table. He didn't quite meet my eyes. He said, "I think we should talk about us." I felt a small knot form in my stomach, but I told myself this was good. Finally, we would put everything on the table. We would talk through whatever was pulling him away, and we would fix it. That was what I was preparing myself for. He said he wasn't happy, said he felt like we'd grown apart, said becoming parents had changed the dynamic between us. I was nodding, tracking with him, thinking about what I wanted to say when he finished. Then he said, "I'm not as attracted to you as I used to be, Naomi. I need to be honest with you about that. You've let yourself go, and I don't know how to pretend that doesn't affect me." I stopped nodding. He kept going. He said he had met someone, said she really takes care of herself. Those exact words, and I will never forget the way he said them, like they were a compliment to her and an accusation toward me delivered in the same breath. He said he hadn't planned for any of it to happen, said he felt like he owed me the truth. He wanted credit for being honest. I sat across from the man I had married, the father of my daughter who was sleeping 15 feet away, and I felt everything go still inside me. Not calm, still. The way things go still right before something breaks. I felt the floor drop out while my body didn't move, like nothing in me knew how to respond to this particular cruelty, said in this particular measured voice. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't cry, not right then, not in front of him. I said, "Okay." He looked almost disappointed, like he had expected, maybe even wanted, a bigger reaction, like falling apart in front of him would have given him something to hold on to, some proof that this had been a difficult decision. I didn't give him that. I got up from the table, checked on Zoe, and went to bed. The next few weeks were a kind of controlled numbness. I moved through the logistics, separating finances, talking to a lawyer, figuring out the custody arrangement for Zoe, with the same methodical focus I brought to everything in my life. People around me kept saying I was too calm. My mother kept asking if I was really okay. My best friend, Tanya, sat with me one evening and said, "Naomi, you don't have to hold it together every second." But here's what I couldn't fully explain to any of them. I was not holding it together. I was redirecting. There's a difference. The grief was real. The humiliation was real. Lying awake at 2 a.m. with Zoe's baby monitor on the nightstand, running Derek's words back through my mind, "You've let yourself go." That pain was completely real. I was not suppressing it. I was letting it move through me and come out the other side as something else, something that looked like focus. I signed the divorce papers 6 weeks after that Sunday conversation. I did not fight for more than I was legally entitled to. I did not beg him to reconsider. I didn't send long messages at midnight or ask mutual friends to intervene. I walked through the process cleanly, and I came out the other side as a single mother with primary custody of my daughter, a remote job that paid my bills, and one other thing Derek had never once thought to ask about. My grandmother, Ida May, passed away when I was 25, 2 years before I married Derek. She had been a quiet woman her entire life, A woman who worked a government job for 32 years, lived below her means, said very little about her finances to anyone, and accumulated, without announcement or fanfare, 3 properties in the Charlotte area. She had bought the first one in the late 80s when the neighborhood was rough and the prices were low. By the time she died, all 3 were worth considerably more than she had paid for them. She left one to my mother, one to a cousin, and one to me. The one she left me was a 3-bedroom house about 4 miles from where I was living. Original hardwood floors, big backyard, updated kitchen, on a street that had been steadily improving for years. By 2022, it was the kind of house people competed for. It was a genuinely good piece of property. Because I had inherited it before Derek and I married, and because I had kept the deed entirely in my name, something Ida May's state lawyer had specifically recommended, and something I had seen no reason to change, it never was a marital asset. Derek knew in a vague, general way that I had received something from my grandmother's estate. He never asked for specifics. He wasn't curious about the details of things that were mine unless they directly affected him.
Since inheriting it, I had been renting the house through a property management company. The income was modest but steady. I put most of it into a separate account I used as an emergency fund and to occasionally help my mother. It wasn't something I discussed openly. It wasn't a secret, I just had no reason to bring it up in my daily life, and Derek had never created an opening by asking. After the divorce, the house kept running the same way. The young couple who had been renting it had their lease expiring in the spring, and I had already started thinking about what to do next with the property. Around that same time, I started hearing through the edges of our shared social circle that Derek and his girlfriend, Brittany, were looking to rent a house together. Something nice, something that signaled a certain kind of life. A few different people mentioned it casually, not knowing they were handing me anything significant. They were just passing along information the way people do. I sat with it for a few days. Then I called my property management company and told them to relist the house once the current tenants were out. I asked them to run a standard listing. Good photos, fair market price, all inquiries handled through their office. I did not put my name anywhere visible. There was nothing unusual about any of it. Property owners stay anonymous all the time. That is entirely normal and entirely legal. Derek applied for the house about 3 weeks after it was listed. He and Brittany toured it. They submitted their application. They were approved. Their credit and income were both fine, and they signed a 12-month lease. I was informed by the management company the same week they picked up their keys. I did not celebrate. I did not call Tanya to tell her. I sat with the information quietly, the way I had learned to sit with most things, and I let it settle. Then I gave them 6 months. 6 months of Derek living in Ida May's house. 6 months of him walking across those original hardwood floors my grandmother had preserved for decades, cooking in that kitchen she had renovated herself, sitting in that backyard on summer evenings thinking he had found something good. 6 months of him believing he had built a new life on solid ground. When the 6th month ended, I contacted the property management company and informed them I would not be renewing the lease at expiration. I asked them to issue the required notice under North Carolina law. 60 days, fully legal, completely standard. The notice went out with the property owner's name on it, as required. My name. Brittany called me on a Tuesday afternoon. Her voice was confused more than angry, and I want to say clearly she had not deserved any part of what Derek had put her in the middle of. As far as I could tell, she had believed she was walking into something straightforward. She had not been given the full picture. I was calm with her. I told her I was the property owner and that I had decided not to renew when the lease expired. I told her the 60-day timeline was the legal requirement, not a punishment. I told her I held no animosity toward her personally. She said, "Does Derek know you own this?" I said, "He will when he reads the notice." She was quiet for a moment, still assembling the pieces. Then she said, "How long had you owned this house?" I told her my grandmother had left it to me 5 years ago. She let that land. Then she said, almost to herself, "He had no idea." "No," I said, "he didn't. He never asked about things that were mine." Derek called 45 minutes after that. First time we'd spoken directly in nearly 4 months. His voice had that unsteady edge of someone who has just had the ground shift under them and hasn't figured out how to stand yet.
He said, "Naomi, what is this?" I said, "It's a notice of non-renewal. The details are all there." He said, "You knew this whole time." I said, "I became aware of the situation at some point, yes." He said, "Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you just tell me?" And I had a choice there. I had imagined that moment many times during those months, what I might say, how I might make him finally understand the full weight of what he had done. I had composed paragraphs in my head at 2 a.m. I had thought about the exact words that would land hardest and mean the most. But standing in it, I didn't want any of that anymore. I said, "Take care of yourself, Derek. You have 60 days. And I hung up. Then I went to the kitchen and made Zoe her afternoon snack, apple slices and peanut butter, which she was deeply committed to at that stage of her life. I sat down on the floor beside her and watched her eat, and I thought about Ida May, about a woman who had worked and saved and stayed quiet about what she was building for 50 years, so that one day someone she loved might have something no one could threaten or take or minimize, something with her name on the deed. I thought, you had no idea, Ida May, but you gave me exactly what I needed. Derek and Brittany were out within the month. I heard they found a 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. I don't know much beyond that, and I haven't gone looking. The house has new tenants now, a woman and her 2 children. When she came to sign her lease through the management company, I asked them to give her a small reduction on the deposit. Something told me to. She reminded me of someone I recognized. Zoe is 2 years old. She is stubborn in the best possible way, and she laughs constantly, and she looks exactly like me, which I love with my whole chest every single day. I'm still carrying some of the weight Derek made me feel ashamed of. Some mornings that still sits with me. Most mornings it doesn't. I grew a whole person. I survived a divorce I didn't see coming. I raised my daughter through her first 2 years mostly on my own. I held on to my grandmother's house, and I kept my name on it, and I made decisions with it that I am complete at peace with. There is a specific kind of person who looks at a quiet woman and sees someone manageable, someone who won't push back, someone whose stillness reads as weakness or confusion or defeat. Derek was that kind of person. He looked at me sitting across that kitchen table and heard me say, "Okay," and he thought he understood exactly what that meant. He didn't. Quiet women are not passive women. We are not broken or resigned or without recourse. We are paying attention. We are keeping records. We are making sure our names stay on what belongs to us, and we are waiting for the moment that all of it matters. He thought I fell apart after he left. I kept the house. I kept my grandmother's legacy and my daughter and my dignity, and I built something on the other side of that marriage that is fully and completely mine. He never saw it coming because he never thought to look. That was always his mistake, not mine.